noise!
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm, brought to you by funkandstuff.net. This is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I'm your host, Scott Dr. Jigs Goldfine, musicologist and author of Everything's on the One, the First Guide to Funk. If you don't have your copy, get on over to Amazon and pick one up. You'll be so glad you did. Whether you're watching the video version of this at funkandstuff.net or on YouTube, or listening to the audio-only podcast version from providers like iTunes and Spotify, as always, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in the show. Speaking of which, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube. That's where Truth and Rhythm lives. All kinds of goodies. You'll get early premieres, and it's all free, so make sure you sign up. Tell a friend, tell family. Also, get your official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff gear at the funkandstuff.net store. Cool stuff like I'm wearing right here. Truth and Rhythm shirts. Show your support and love of the show and also the musicians and the music that they represent. Also want to give a shout out to the Funk Exhibition Center and Hall of Fame in Dayton, Ohio, of which I'm very proud to be an official funk ambassador. Go to thefunkcenter.org to learn more and keep the funk alive. And now, with all that, it's time to get on with the show. Enjoy. I'm pleased to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership a founding member of one of the most popular and successful R&B groups of the 1980s and 1990s, Jonathan Lewis of the prolific Atlantic Starr.
Yeah.
With Jonathan on percussion and trombone, the band scored 5 consecutive top 10 R&B albums from 1981 to 1987 and racked up an amazing 16 top 20 hit singles from 1978 to 1991. Those tracks include Send For Me, Circles, Touch of Four-Leaf Clover, Freak-A-Ristic, Secret Lovers, If Your Heart Isn't In It, My First Love, Masterpiece, and Always, which went to number 1 on both the R&B and pop singles charts. After taking a nearly 20-year hiatus off from album releases, Atlantic Starr came back as strong as ever with a new set in 2017, and the group continues to set stages afire. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thank God. I can't complain. In lieu of the pandemic and all the other madness that's going on in this country right now, I must say that I'm pretty calm and I'm just trying to stay positive and stay focused.
Well, very glad to hear that. And where are you coming to us from today?
I'm from New York. I'm in New York.
Yeah. Born and raised, right?
Yep. I'm a native New Yorker.
Yeah. Yeah, so when people see this, it'll be a few weeks from now. Hopefully some of this madness will have calmed down, but who's to say? We can't tell, but we hope for the best, of course.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Because it's been quite challenging what's taking place in this country right now. But on the other hand, it's been uplifting too to see people finally getting woke and coming out and in protesting against all the injustice.
Yeah, so again, thank you so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it. Been a fan for a long time and really looking forward to the conversation. So,
yeah, thanks for having me.
Going to test your memory banks a little bit. I hope that's okay, but hopefully it'll be a fun, nostalgic journey back a little bit.
Yes.
So, Jonathan, tell me, you're growing up in New York City.
or thereabouts. You had all these musical siblings, and what was it like in the Lewis household, and how did you guys get so into music?
Well, it was plenty of action. Let's put it that way. We were all active. I guess it all began in church for us. We grew up in a small town called Greenburgh, New York, which is a township of White Plains. And, we were a very musical family. I had cousins, uncles, and other folks in my family on both sides, on my mother's side and my father's side, that were very musical. My sisters and my one of my cousins played classical, and another one of my older cousins played guitar, and my uncle played drums for um, uh, Brooke Benton and King Curtis. He was a studio drummer at Atlantic Records for many years,
Wow.
and did recordings. So, the influence was there. We were very active in church. We sang in the choir, and then my brother David was a soloist. Very young, he started singing when he was like 8 or 9 years old. And Wayne and David started singing duos together in church. And then my brother David had one of the uh, I don't know if he was an usher, one of the brothers in the church that played guitar that used to accompany accompany my brother. When he would go out and sing at different churches, and I remember David did Ted Mack's amateur hour when he was 9 years old. I don't know if you remember Ted Mack.
I don't. I think I've seen it, but I've certainly heard of it.
Yeah, they used to do the show out of the Ed Sullivan Theater on, I believe it was on Broadway. And he got to go on Ted Mack, and um, one of the viewers saw him and took interest in him and got into contact with my mother, and she offered to give him classical training, basically on scholarship, because she was just intrigued, I guess, with his voice, but kind of, I guess, saw his talent. So my brother David and Wayne started training classically very young, and that's more or less the humble beginnings. I was the oldest, so I was more or less the big supporter at that time. Um, I was doing sound for a group that I was involved with, because we had different groups that we kind of came out of. My brothers were younger when they started their group. The name of the group was called Unchained Youth. I was playing with a group called Newban, but I wasn't playing at the time. I was doing sound. I started out doing sound and setting up equipment first. And then eventually, when Sharon Bryant joined the group, she came out of a group called South Road Connection. So that's kind of like, fast tracking it to, to kind of put together how it all came together. Let's put it that way, how it evolved. But yeah, I mean, again, it was just a musical family, musical time in our lives. Growing up as kids, we were influenced by everything. I mean, one thing about in my household, we just didn't listen to one musical art form. We listened to, at that time, it was jazz on the radio, it was pop, you know, um, it was country western, of course, classical, gospel, Mahalia Jackson, all that stuff. And then once that whole rock and roll era really kicked in with the Beatles and Rolling Stones and all that, we started listening to all of that. And of course, Motown. We listened to all the Motown. Motown was the biggest at that time. And then we had a famous DJ in New York called Cousin Brucey. I don't know if you remember Cousin Brucey, but he was on one of the top 100 stations, and he played everything. So we listened to it all. We listened to Patsy Cline, and it's just so much. Like I said, Motown, the Beatles, Dave Clark Five, Sly Stone, James Brown. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We just had some great influences growing up, and then the jazz, listening to Charlie Parker and John Coltrane and all that old bebop era and Duke Ellington and Count Basie. We were just influenced by everything and everybody. You know.
Yeah. But you picked up some trombone somewhere along the way?
Yeah, it's funny. I started playing trombone. Like I said, I started doing sound, and then I went off to college. And on the weekend, I would come home and we would do gigs, and I would do the sound and set up, and, more of the roadie type work. And then a friend of mine, I took interest in trombone. I always liked trombone, but I took an interest in it because piano was in the house. So even though I didn't study classically, but because the piano was in, my brothers were studying, and it was music always around, I was able to kind of get into piano. And I taught a lot of the piano myself, and then my brother Wayne showed me a lot of stuff on the piano. But trombone was an instrument that always intrigued me because it didn't have valves, to slide. You had to be able to hear and know your positions and be able to get to the note and hit it right on. So I was like, I wanted that challenge. So what I did is, it was funny. A friend of mine by the name of Jesse Bradden had a horn, and he was in the pawn shop, and he said, if you go get the horn out, it's yours. Because I loved the way he sounded. He had some of the best tone. I think he played E flat, baritone, and then he played trombone too. But his tone was like, when I heard him play, I was like, yeah, I really want to play this instrument because his tone was just, I was like, man, I hope one day I can get my tone to sound like that. So I went and got the horn, worked, raised the money, bought the horn, and when I got the horn, he started teaching me. And then he got me through the basics, and after that, I became very fanatical about rehearsing. And then at that time, the trumpet player in the group that I was in, Newban, um, he helped me out a lot because he had been playing. He played trumpet throughout high school. His name was Albert Jones, and basically, you know, once I got up to par, I started shedding with him, and so that's what really was. That's where the genesis of my trombone experience began.
Hmm.
Um, and I just evolved from there. It was a lot of work and perseverance, a lot of frustration because it's an extremely frustrating instrument when you're trying to perfect it. But I was adamant about practicing, and I always had this thing in me where I never wanted anything to defeat me. I was like, I'm not going to be defeated. So uh, I said, I'm gonna learn this. If it kills me, I'm gonna learn. So that's what happened. I just persevered, and after a while, after the years of putting years in and time in it, I really started sounding like a real trombone player. But I'm very thankful for the people that helped me through my humble beginnings. You know. So yeah, I played trombone and I played it for quite a few years. And then in the '80s, I got into really playing a lot more piano and then writing. And because I, got into writing and playing piano and then programming back in 1982 when the musical software came out, I started, teaching myself musical technology and musical programming. And I started spending a lot of time, musically programming and sequencing and so on and so forth.
Hmm. Yeah. So Newban, did you play trombone with that group or no?
Yeah, I did. I evolved from being the sound guy to the trombone player. Yes.
Yeah. So they, had definitely a jazzy kind of feel, and the horns were more up front, and you could hear a lot of those influences you were talking about. I think in those
Yeah.
two albums that they did.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. How did you guys, or how did they and you feel about the band and those albums and where everything was at that time?
Well, for me, it was mostly experimental. We were doing a lot of cutting edge stuff. And it's like I've listened back about 2 weeks ago. I listened back to a lot of the new band stuff that we um, created and the stuff that I played on, and I was like, wow. When you're in it, you don't realize the dynamics of it, and because I hadn't heard it or I hadn't listened to it in many, many years. And when I listened to it, I was like, man, we were playing some slamming and horn parts. We were innovative and we were trying new things and expressing ourselves through the influences that had influenced us. So we were into the whole improvisational thing and feeling free in the music, which was cool. But for me, it got to a point where but we got to eat too,
Yeah.
you and so my head started shifting more into like trying to be more contemporary and more trendy, so we can get into the market and start really be making a living you know from playing music because we loved it. But it's one thing. It's great to be creative and experimental, but a lot of times that don't pay the bills. So it's like the shift came when we started talking about we need to get a little bit more commercial and more up with the times and trying to stay original, but being able to be more contemporary at the same time.
Hmm.
So that's basically, you know, what happened. We started incorporating other elements into the group. I think what happened with us was what really kind of opened the door for the change to happen is we got offered to do Ski Music Festival in the French Alps in 1974. And at the last minute, the keyboard player we had fell out. So we had to scramble. So I went and I talked to my brothers and brought them over. Took care and paid for their tickets and got all their passport stuff straight, make sure it was all cool. Because they had passports, because they had been going overseas doing performances. Because the school that I grew up in, um, we had a music teacher there named Evelyn LaRue Pittman that worked with Marian Anderson. And basically, she wrote this play about Martin Luther King. And it started with my class, and then she kept it going after my graduating class, and she just continued it. And by the time my brothers came along, Dad raised money to really take it out internationally, take the whole chorus out and tour. So they went to Copenhagen in Denmark. I think they went to Africa, but they played Tribalese over in Copenhagen, and it was a phenomenal success. You know, they had standing ovations and everything. So my brothers had passports because of that. They were traveling and touring at a very young age. So again, I grabbed them to come with us over to France, and Porter, which was the drummer with us at that time, he spoke to his cousin Sharon that was with another group called South Road Connection, and she agreed to come do the shows with us. I think she had started doing some singing with us, but I think those dates over in French Alps kind of sealed it, you know, as far as what the unit or what the group is going to look like from that point on. So we went over and we did the shows over in the French Alps. It was a ski music festival. It was a black ski music club that took us over to do the show, um, do the shows. Um, and so when we came back, we started doing shows and doing gigs, you know, different clubs locally and then playing in the city and doing stuff locally up in Boston and Connecticut. And, you know, we would start to really get busy. Then we got a call about 3, 4 months later to come out to LA and do this, spend his 25th anniversary party from a very good friend of ours that we grew up with that was in uh, the music business and was working for Columbia when he was in New York and then had moved out to LA. And his name was Glenn Friedman. He was the one that uh, basically was the agent on putting that show together for us. So we went out to LA and we did the spin his 25th anniversary party. And basically, when we got out there after we did it, he said, "Hey, you know what? You need to stay out here and play and work and gig and, you know, do what we got to do until we get a record deal. We're not going back." So that's what we did. We came out there with with meager with meager subsistence or provisions, you know, with the clothes we had, we took with us, and whatever money we had, and whatever credit card people had, and that's what we did. We stayed and we lived we lived cooperative. It was like a co-op. We worked and um, we worked like a family as a collective. Just put it that way. You know. Yeah, we just was, we had that synergistic dynamic going on, and it worked. It really made it strong. We got out there, we paid some dues, but we had a tight unit. The music was good. When we went to do auditions, people, you know, would fall right into it. They loved the band, and so they would book us, and we started really getting busy after that.
Now, what I've read is that around '77 is when you got the A&M deal. How did that happen? Did Herb Alpert actually see you guys play, or someone else, or what happened?
Well, what happened was at that time we had a manager that was with us by the name of Earl Cole, and we had worked to do a demo prior to going over to A&M. Because that was the other thing. Once we got out there and we got settled, we ran into these two brothers by the name of the Weissmans, and basically we did. a demo deal with them, basically, and we went in the studio there and we cut a demo, which really was an album. And then once we finished it, um, the manager at the time, Earl Cole, um, he started shopping the demo around. So there was an A&R guy at A&M Records by the name of Barry Corkin, and he heard it and he liked it. And so we came down to one of the after-hour places we were playing down in Anaheim called Elliott Smith and Jones. And it came, and I guess the band that blew him away, because, you know, we were really tight in those days. We were playing, that's all we did. We would do sometimes, we were doing 3 gigs a night. We played one location, pack up, break down, pack up, go to the next one, do another 3 sets, you know, break down, pack up, go to the after hours, and then play at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, you know. So that's really where Barry Corkin came to see us. But, you know, we were young, we were working out every day, you know, that, you know, we were carrying the equipment and playing and breaking it down and driving and everything. It was totally self-contained. So, like I said, Barry came, he heard the group, loved it, he told Herb about it. And so they invited us to come to A&M to do an audition. And so we went to A&M. When we got there, Barry was there. Herb Alpert came to listen to us. We did it on La Brea at the old Charlie Chaplin studio where A&M Records used to be, the big sound stage they had there. And it's, you know, it wasn't a problem for us because we were playing so much. It wasn't like we were, you know, nervous or scared or anything. It's like, you know, we fell right into it. So we came and did what we were doing all the time. So after we finished, and after they heard the group, Barry and told us that Herb loved the group and he wanted to sign us. But not too long after that is when we signed with A&M Records. That was our first record deal.
How excited were you guys?
Well, we were very excited, you know, because it took us about a year and 6 months to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after persevering, paying dues, you know, having a corporate living and having to share everything, and, you know, and practice, it paid off.
Able to finally call mom and dad back east and say, hey, it's going to be okay?
Yeah, that was a good feeling to be able to call back and say we landed a record deal. That was a real good feeling. Yeah.
And at that time, there was 9 or 10 of you, or how many band members?
It was 9 at that time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a total of 9 people.
Yeah. So what went into, you know, that first record? Did you pretty much just upgrade the demo you had done, or how did you get that together?
Well, the demo, let me just give you a little background on the demo, because the demo that we did it with Michael Jackson's cousin, Ron Rancifer. He was working with the Weissman's production group, and he came in and he co-produced that with my brother Wayne, because my brother Wayne basically was the arranger. He was most of the stuff that was written by him. You know, he was producing the vocals and all of that. So, because he had the technical skills, you know, he was doing arrangements, writing the string arrangements, all of that, you know, giving parts to everybody. And so him and Ron basically were the focal point of that first demo, Ron Rancifer. And Ron came in with a lot of uh, a lot of the know-how knowledge on how to put music together commercially. You know what I'm saying, or how to assimilate it. You know how to
Polish it, package it.
right, how to
Yeah.
make it make sense. You know what I'm saying? So basically, I got to give a lot of credit to Ron because came in. He was a great guy. You know, he's a funny guy, man. Guy would have you laughing all day. He was unique. He was truly a funkster. He was a funky dude, but he was a great guy. Very very knowledgeable. Matter of fact, Ron was the one that played keyboards with the Jackson Five when they were out on the road. He played uh, he played clarinet and I think he played organ at time and then piano. So he was right there with the Jackson. He was in the Jackson band. You know, it was great working with him. Yeah.
So that first record came out in '78, and you had Bobby Eli credited as producer, who had all kinds of Philadelphia-related experience. And how did that come together?
Yeah, the first two albums we did with Bobby Eli. I think Barry Corkin was the one. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember who put us together, but it might have been Barry Corkin that put us together with Bobby Eli. Um, and yeah, so Bobby did the first two albums, and he was working with another guy that became a good friend of mine named Jeff Poussin that was writing a lot of the lyrics with Bobby. Well, you know, he was a co-writer with Bobby on Bobby's songs. Um, Bobby was an incredible guitar player. His pocket, in terms of his rhythm, was impeccable. Because he played on all that Sound of Philly stuff, you know, all the stuff at that time was coming out of Philadelphia, you know, Jackie Moore, MFSB, all that stuff Bobby was playing on. And I think he wrote the Major Harris song, Love Won't Let Me Wait.
Hmm.
I think Bobby wrote that, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, Bobby came with a wealth of knowledge when it came down to being in the studio and tracking and putting and laying down parts, stacking um, uh, instruments and vocals and so on and so forth. Really he was really great at that. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely could feel some of that, Gamble and Huff type vibe coming through on
Oh
some
yeah.
those first two records. Yeah.
Yeah, because the second record we recorded down in Philly at Sigma Sound on 13th Street.
Hmm.
So we were in the heart of it all, you know, with McFadden and Whitehead and Teddy Pendergrass and all of them recorded out of
OJ's. Yeah.
OJ's and trying to think of the producer that was at the time. Martin, his last name was Martin. What was his first name? I can't remember his first name. I think it might have been Robert Martin. I can't remember. But he was the guy that did a lot of production. With Tom Bell and you know it was active place. You know, great musicians down in Philadelphia. It was a very unique place. That's what I could say. The energy was impressive.
How'd you feel about, you guys had a single stand up, got to number 16 on the R&B chart, which is pretty
Yeah,
good for a debut, you know. How did you guys feel about that? Were you encouraged? Were you hungry for more? What?
yeah. It's like when I remember when stand up first hit the radio. It was like, whoa! It was like finally, because that was a song that Wayne wrote, and he used to play with his band, Unchained Youth. And I remember when I first heard it, when they played it, I was like, damn, on this song, you know, the way they hit it, pocket was like, whoa, it was banging, you know. So, once we became Atlantic Starr, then, we cut it with our group, and, to finally hear it on radio was definitely a high, after all the time. And it was another song that they released because we used to hear it in LA when the record first came out. It was called With Your Lover Come Alive, and Porter Carroll sang that. I'll never forget hearing that on the radio. That was a song that uh, Bobby Eli and Jeff Roussan wrote. That was another song that had a vibe about it that was really. I'll never forget hearing those two songs on the radio, and it was like, wow, we finally arrived. So yeah, it was an incredible feeling. As at that time on the first album, we recorded it out in California um, at my brain. I gotta think. It was a studio up Cahuenga, Hollywood Sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Maurice and Verdine and them were working a lot at that time, and they were working with Denise Williams and another group called Pockets.
Yeah.
And so we used to run into them all the time in the studio because we were recording. That was the place. The studio is where we recorded basically the whole first album. Was in Hollywood Sound.
Was Pockets also from Philly?
I believe Pockets was from
I think
Philadelphia.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
You know that first record too had that "Gimme Your Lovin'," which was real nice funk track.
Oh, you
Yeah.
loving, give me loving right now. Oh yeah, I remember. Bobby and Jeff wrote that. Yeah, that was funky. Bobby played guitar, and I'll just remember him in the studio rocking, and the way he was hitting it. It was like he was just like It was back in those days. It was different because we didn't have the sequences and the musical technology like we have, like we eventually evolved to, like in the '80s. So you had to play everything live. So you had to be tight. Everybody had to play together because if you were in the middle of playing and somebody messed up, you'd have to start all over again. So when we started playing or recording, when we did the new stuff that I was telling you about, and even with Unchained Youth, because I brought them in the studio to cut their first demo down Electric Ladyland on 8th Street in the Village, Jimi Hendrix studio. When we first started going in, everybody played. The horns would have their own booth, the rhythm section, and we would lay the music down. Everybody would play at the same time. We didn't overdub unless we came back and we overdubbed another horn piece or did some overdubs for guitar or maybe some piano or other stuff. But the basic foundation, horn, bass, drums, keyboards, guitars, everybody played at the same time. So you had to be tight. Because if you wasn't, you'd have to start all over again and you might take a beat down for messing up too many times. Or get the bad looks or almost get cursed out. You're like, yo, man, come on. So, yeah, you had to really, you had to be tight and you had to be in pocket. So we didn't have all those tracks back in those days like you have now. I remember when I first started recording, we were recording on 4, 8 tracks. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, like I said, you just had to be tight. It had to be polished. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and most bands that got anywhere had to, be out there a while like you guys were to get
Right.
those skills to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, so, Jonathan, your second album didn't quite do as well, I don't think, as the first one. And then you guys or somebody made a switch in producers to James Carmichael. What
Right.
happened there?
Um, I don't know. I think after the second album, um, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know if the company kind of really believed in it, or I don't know if it was a marketing issue, because it seemed like we always had that issue in terms of how to market these guys. But I don't really remember, to really be honest, I don't remember what happened after the second album. I just know we changed producers. I know that second album was like, that was like pulling alligator teeth, to finally get it done. Um, my brother Wayne and myself were the last two people that finally left Philly, because we had to stay there with Bobby to do all the edits on the whole album and mastering. And then I had a deadline date where I had to get the record out to the record company. So when myself literally must have stayed up for 2 days straight trying to get this record finished. I mean, even Bobby got tired and said, "Guys, y'all got it," because he said, "I gotta go." So we were the last two standing. But I'll never forget when we finally got it done. That did that last edit, got it mastered. Well, it got mastered out in California. I'm sorry, Bernie Grudman did the mastering. But when we finally did that last edit, and we had the 2-inch, we had the half-inch copy along with the TV tracks and slaves and all that. We were like, bam, we took all our stuff back to the hotel. And then they were sending a company to pick it up to ship it to LA. And we were so knocked out and tired that when they came to the hotel to pick up the tapes, we almost missed them. I just happened to hear the banging on the door. And so we got up, I got up, gave him everything. I don't know, I can't remember if it was UPS or one of the carriers came, picked it up, sent it out to LA, and then Brent mastered everything. And then came out, you know what I'm saying? Um,
I,
but
it,
I don't really remember totally what happened. It's just
I
kind of
like the
like
cover of that one. That was a good looking cover.
yeah, with the girl on the horse.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it was a good cover. Interesting.
Yeah. Attention getting, and you needed
Yeah,
that, in the record stores.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Well, James Carmichael, though, of course, came from, a lot of the Motown production and Commodores and stuff like that. And so,
Hmm.
he sort of brought, I guess, more of a Detroit soul kind of mix to it, as opposed to the Philly influence. So, how do you feel that you guys progressed once he came aboard? Because then you started really becoming what Atlantic Starr was going to fully be.
Yeah, well, when James Carmichael came, it was magical because he moved. The way did things was real methodically. He did it in a methodical way, because he would do stuff you didn't know what he was doing and why he was doing it. But you didn't really realize the dynamics of it until it was done. It was like that. And now when you look back on it, I mean, the music was timeless, and it was because of how he knew how to produce timeless music. James Carmichael was a master producer. He was like, you know, like the master kung fu instructor, so to speak.
The
You know,
sensei, yeah.
the sensei, exactly. James was just incredible. I mean, he was an incredible arranger. He knew how to put parts in, where to put them, the right vibe, the right instrument to play that part. When it came down to sweetening and overdubs, or when he would incorporate and bring external people in to help with the project, he just had that knack about him. He had that talent about him. I guess, yeah, it was natural for him. You know what I'm saying? He just was. He was just incredible. That's all I can say. He was a great, great, great mentor and a great producer, and we learned a lot from him. Especially my brothers, because basically they were writing a lot together as we evolved. David started writing more, and so him and Wayne became more or less the writing team, and they started writing together. And James liked their style of writing, so he used a lot of the songs that they wrote. You know,
The first product of that union was Radiant in 1980.
right,
Made it to number 5 in the R&B chart. So you immediately like entered like a new level.
right,
Chart wise, airplay wise. Had a top 5 single, When Love Calls. And the whole record just really smokes from beginning to end. So
yeah, that was a great album. That album that was the first production of James, and it was a great, 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 great album. I mean, the songs, his approach, and how he did what he did. It was an awesome album. And then it just seemed like the build. Brilliance came after that, and that was another great album. You know.
yeah,
So
I felt like the other thing about when Carmichael came in, I felt like when you guys did funk, it was deeper. When you did soul, it was richer,
right,
and the bass was a little more prominent.
right,
All these elements and coalescing them.
right. Yeah, absolutely right. The dynamics and the sonics changed. So that's you're totally right about that. You know.